Welcome back to our Real Talk discussion series. And we are super fortunate to have Regina joining us again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Say hi, Regina.
Hi again. Very excited to be back. Thank you for inviting me back. The power of positivity and positive psychology is just something that really resonates with me as a mental health provider. And I love sharing this information. So
yay. Well, it's also an excuse to keep in touch and chat
absolutely.
with you, which is always such a pleasure. So as Regina said, she's actually going to be talking to us. Last time she talked to us about some dynamics of abuse, and that was really, really valuable. And today she's going to be talking to us about the power of positivity. And I am taking notes. So I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. So do you want to tell us a little bit about the power of positivity and why it's so interesting to you? Just tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, definitely. So I really got interested in the idea of the power of positivity and positive psychology, as a mental health provider, because, so often we focus on mental health illness and not mental health wellness. And really, it should be the wellness. There are things that are going well in everybody's life. So basically, positive psychology and the power of the positivity is about focusing on a person's strengths. And when somebody comes for mental health care, oftentimes they don't feel that they have any. They say like, it's depression, anxiety, even if it's, unhealthy relationships, whatever it is, and it just feels like nothing is going right. And, it's about how do we fix it? How do we change it? And we do that in positive psychology, but we do it from a strength-based focus, not from a deficit focus. So, I'm sure you've heard, well, this is one of my favorites, but, happiness is not a destination. It's a way of life. So often we quantify happiness, like, well, I'll be happy when, I'm out of this relationship, or I'll be happy when I don't feel so depressed. I'll be happy when I lose 30 pounds. I'll be happy when. So it's always out there. It's almost elusive, because once we've met one goal of happiness, we always set something else. And then we don't really know what it looks like. So we don't even realize that we're there. So basically, the power of positivity is being happy. And I actually don't use the word happy in my practice. I use content, satisfied, in the moment, engaged. All of those characteristics really describe happiness. So we can't be happy all the time. That's just unrealistic. It's like any other emotion. I mean, we're not sad all the time, even when somebody feels like they are. My job as a mental health provider is to find those times that they're actually not, to pull out those positives. So the same thing with happy. You're not going to be happy all the time. There's, life is struggles. Some are, higher level struggles. Some are lower level struggles. I mean, even, I'm trying to think of something simple, you get in traffic, you're late for a meeting, or you're late for an appointment. And that's a struggle. You're not happy when that happens, right? Like, nobody's happy when that happens. Right. So happiness is not a constant. It's all emotions go up and down. It's more of a perspective. It's how do we look at obstacles? How do we look at crises? How do we look at stressors?
What that makes me think of, Regina, is I also feel like we are a little jaded by this sense of happiness, maybe by even looking in the media, and we kind of get a sense of what a happy relationship is, or what a happy person looks like.
Oh, absolutely.
And we feel like, oh, well, that's not how I am. So I must not be happy sometimes, because that's not what I see. And we can always just be chasing that without actually sitting in it and being content.
The biggest thing about social media is just remember, people choose what they share. And most people are going to choose what they think looks good to other people. It's that social profile. It's so, the saying, you don't know what goes on behind closed doors. You don't. And so people are going to project their best foot forward in social media. So I talk to everybody about not comparing your happiness or your life or your relationship or your weight, your hair, anything to what you're seeing on social media. So, and that's hard.
Yeah.
So this is kind of neat, and this is what was really exciting. Like, there have been studies done about how the power of positivity, or like having a positive outlook, being able to, sort of a nature, an optimistic nature, a positive nature, actually leads to more life satisfaction. So a couple of studies that were done, sort of following people to see this and how, they determine this, which is actually really neat, is I think in like the 50s, it was a while ago, but they took, yearbook pictures of it was a graduating class. It was all female graduating class. And they took the yearbook pictures and they compared smiles. And then they followed those graduates through life. Like, they checked in like all different times of life. So they call it a Duquesne and a not Duquesne smile. I'm not really a good research person and like how to like describe it like in real research details, but basically a Duquesne smile is a full face smile. It's a smile that like takes up your whole face, your eyes crinkle. It's, and it's like a whole body smile, and a non-Duquesne smile is just a, where somebody says smile. So you smile. And a Duquesne smile is like a, here I am. Like, it almost like shows you're happy to be there. You're glad to be there. You're happy to be there. And, and the other smile is because somebody told you to smile.
Right.
So they follow these, these graduates through life, I think for, I don't know exactly how many times, but anyway, and they found that the women who had the Duquesne smiles in their graduating class had, their quality of life was more positive. Their relationships were more positive. Their health. This is the thing that I really kind of love to talk about, is their health. Genuinely, they were healthier. They had less medication, like less of them were on medications. It was, a really neat qualitative research project. Not the only one that was done. They also did it. This is also really cool on, and again, the women didn't know that that was happening when they took their yearbook pictures.
Right.
They didn't know that they were going to be studied at all.
Right.
And then they did it with baseball cards. And they took a whole bunch of baseball cards. And of course, the baseball players didn't know they were being studied as well. And they did the same thing. They compared the smiles, and then they follow, and they put them all in their categories, like Duquesne, non-Duquesne, half Duquesne, I don't know. And then they, followed them through their life and to see what the quality of life, they had. And again, they found the same correlation. And so, it's kind of neat. And then this one's really pretty cool too. This one convent, the Mother Superior had asked the nuns to write their autobiographies. And again, not for any reason, like not to be researched. They just said, they wanted an autobiography. And these autobiographies were then taken and read. And the ones that had the positive outlook, the optimism, the more, engaged, just, that perspective of things are, life is good, things are good. Mm-hmm. The quality of life for those nuns was also, higher than the ones who talked about all like negative things and things that weren't working and how miserable they were. And the cool thing about that study is, it really was a population of, similar population, I mean, it was all nuns. They didn't have, they had very similar relationships. They had very similar, social, engagement and, activities and responsibilities. And so it was, the correlation was made between the autobiographies that had the positive tone and the autobiographies that had the negative tone to those nuns, their quality of life.
So interesting. And I feel like also just to make the point that I think you made, but just to make sure I heard it right, that of course, the ones who focused on the more positive aspects, it doesn't necessarily mean they had more positive things going on in their life or they didn't have any hardships, right? It just means that they're choosing to highlight those positive things instead of the negative things. Is that right?
Right. I mean, exactly. I mean, if you read on the studies, they have specifics, but, they could have had the same situations. It was how they dealt with the situations, and how they let it affect their lives, and their perspective on that situation. And did they get help for it? Did they look for their strengths through it? Did they look for the silver linings? I love the term silver linings, that type of thing. Exactly. Like, it wasn't that they had these these non-crisis lives and these perfect lives. It was how they engaged in those situations. You can learn it. You really can learn it. You can learn how to stop yourself from, that spiral down, and try, and see even the littlest things that's a strength, or that's, a positive.
Well, and stop me if I'm getting ahead, because I feel like we've had several conversations about this topic, and I feel like also, isn't it kind of inherent in us to kind of focus on some of the negative things sometimes?
The negativity bias.
Okay, that's what it is. Feel free to speak on this if that's a good time, because that's what this just made me think of.
So humans are wired with a negativity bias. And that's from, as we evolved. And I'll give you kind of like a simplified version of it. But when, our ancestors from, way, way, way back, they didn't have this type of life. They went out, they killed their food, they came home, they ate it, they made, and that, that's what they did. They didn't have all of these, like stimuli that we have. But they also had some real, dangers. This is where fight and flight came in. They really were in danger every time they left their dwellings, their safety, because there was animals out there, and so it was fight or flight. You had to, go out there. You had to be hyper aware of the situation, of what was around you. So when you were out there, you were in fight or flight all the time, and everything was a danger when you were out there. But when you killed your food and you got it and you went into your safety spot, you were safe, and the fight or flight went away. And then you could, you were in equilibrium, you were calm. So that fight or flight is perception of dangers around us. We in this society have so much stimuli. I mean, there's stimuli everywhere. There's not always a safe place for anybody. There's so many, especially like social media, all of that. So a lot of people are always in fight or flight. It's that negativity bias. Like they're always looking for what's going to happen, the negative, the danger, and everything, or not everything, but it can be perceived as danger. So one of the statistics or the sayings or whatever it is that I do love, and one of the first things I read about in positive psychology was about the negativity bias and how our brains are Teflon to the positive, but Velcro for the negative. So if something negative happens, that's it. It's negative. If something positive happens, we need reinforcement of it. We don't see it as positive. We have to really look at it again. We don't believe it, so we believe the negative. We have to get validation of the positive. So it oftentimes takes 5 positive experiences to 1 negative experience for you to see something that is, that's good, that's positive in your life. I'm going to give an example of the negativity bias with one of my clients who I work a lot with on the negativity bias. And she was talking about so she was talking about going to her children's parent-teacher conferences. And she's telling me all about it, all about it, all about it, all about it. And at the end, she's like, oh, and then they said he was worried. And I was like, okay. And then they, like she had a couple like things that she was kind of focused on, like, well, what did they mean by he was worried? Or, they said he was unorganized. What did they mean by he was unorganized? So, maybe 2 or 3 negative words. The rest was like, these kids are doing great. They're in middle school and they're doing great. Like what you want to hear. So she talks to me and then I said to her, I go, you know what this just was? And she's like, what? I said, an example of the negativity bias. I said, you just told me 90% positive, probably actually maybe 95% positive and 5% negative, but you're ruminating over the negative. And, because when you hear something negative, you want to change it,
Right. You want to fix it.
You want to change it. You want to fix it.
Right.
Again, everybody has something in them that's not, that could be fixable, could be changeable. But it was really interesting though. And she was like, oh, you're right. I was like, yeah, And
I can imagine if you kind of allow yourself, or you're not aware of this information that you are telling us about right now, that you could spend just a lot of your life focusing on all the things that you would like to fix, which like you said, we could probably all come up with, just endless amounts of things.
Yeah.
And then, so maybe she spent her whole session talking about those things she wants to fix, instead of really taking up most of the session on the positive things, which would have been really great.
Right. And engaging and applauding and being, proud, of these kids who, like, middle school, it's tough and they're thriving and, and flourishing. That's what positive psychology is about. It's about human flourishing. And, I love the word flourish. I love the word flow. And they're not words that you hear as much as you hear, like struggles and crisis and negative, it's just, but flourishing and flow. And we all can flourish and have flow, but it's, and sometimes more than others, sometimes, life is difficult. And that's the other thing about, positive psychology is that it's not saying that you're going to find the silver lining in every situation. It's not saying that, there's not crises and there's not awful things that happen. And there are some things that happen that there is no good out of it. There's no good in it. But if you make it through it and you survive it, it's showing you have strength. So that's what you find that's good. Okay, I was able to deal with this. It was horrible. It was, I don't know how I did it, but I did it. So now that's the positive. You did it. You made it through. You weathered a horrible storm, a difficult storm, but you did it. And that's where the positivity comes in.
Yeah, I love that. That makes so much sense. And I feel like it's such a mind switch that I feel like if you focus on enough, you can focus more on those words that you were talking about too, flourishing, being hopeful.
Yeah. Right. And what does flow mean? I love the word flow. I watched a TED talk on flow and it was just so cool. And flow is really a state of being. And we've all had it. We just haven't labeled it, where, you're doing something that you love doing but then you do it almost without thinking, you're not putting a lot of thought into it. You're just doing it and you're mindful of what you're doing, but you're not necessarily judgment. You're not judging yourself. You're not worrying about, am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? What is that person thinking of me? What is this person, what you're just doing? You're doing something that like comes naturally and feels good. And it's called flow and it's awesome. But most people don't take the time to reflect on things that they've done to even know that they felt flow.
All right. So it's about taking that time to focus on.
Yeah. So, and again, going back to it, it's also about when, as a mental health provider, working with clients, and again, clients come in, they're depressed and they genuinely are. I mean, I'm not saying somebody isn't depressed and somebody doesn't have anxiety that affects their functioning and that somebody isn't in a relationship that again, an unhealthy relationship or an abusive relationship, in that, oh, well, I don't tell them to go find the flow. I don't say, well, find the positive. It's you talking about the strength. And again, one of the strengths is you're here. You're surviving it. When was the last time you laughed? What made you laugh? What makes you feel good? Finding what is working and not always talking about what isn't working. We know this about trauma, and I know, you've heard it, Courtney, talking about the trauma over and over and over again is not going to help you heal from the trauma. Mm-hmm. It's taking, your trauma experience or whatever trauma that is, where you are today, how it made you, and how it works in your being today, but then moving forward from it. And how can you not let that trauma drive the rest of your life? And that's finding the strength and the things that are working in your life, and not always focusing on the things that aren't, so that's kind of what I talk about, mental health wellness, as opposed to mental health illness. And there is mental health illness. So you get that, you diagnose it, you get, whatever medication you need, or you get the support. And then you say, okay, this is why you came in. But now let's say, what is, let's look at your wellness then. It's a wellness check, so there are two ways of looking at it. So we all have it. I mean, it's the nature of, it's human nature, it's life. So, but sometimes if we can focus on it and we can put it in its place, it doesn't have to take over. So another wonderful saying in the mental health world that I love is that, depression occurs when we get stuck in the past, when we get stuck in the should have, could have, would have, guilt about something that happened in the past, shame about something that happened in the past. Like, that's where depression, that's sort of like the foundation of depression. When people come in and say, they're depressed, or I say I'm depressed, it usually has to do with something that I'm ruminating over that I wish I could have done differently. The fact is, the past is the past. I mean, we can't change the past. I always say we can't change it. We learn from it. So we learn from whatever it is that is causing us to ruminate over, that we should have, could have, would have, wished we had done differently, makes us feel a bit shame, makes us feel guilt. We take it and we learn from it, so that the next time something comes up that, has a similarity, hopefully that's where, positive psychology comes in, or just, engaging in the present moment and responding, not reacting. Hopefully we can remember what we did in the past and not repeat that. But that's where depression comes from. It comes from the things that we can't change and that we feel, like frustrated over not being able to change. These experiences can make us feel hopeless. And that's where we find the hope. And then there's anxiety, and depression and anxiety are most common. So anxiety is now the opposite of depression. Anxiety is focused on things that haven't happened yet, that they might happen. What if they happen? Could this happen? What if this happens? How am I going to handle, so I don't know if you hear the theme here, but things that we don't have any control over. We have no control over what we did in the past. We have no control over what's going to happen, 5 minutes from now, mm-hmm. So when we feel that we don't have any control over something, that's where the mental health illness, the mental health disorder, the mental health difficulty comes in. So anxiety is worrying about the future. We've got no control over that. We can plan for it. And we all know best laid plans, but we can plan for it. We can have goals. We can work towards those. So we can hope for an outcome, but we really don't have the control over it. And we definitely don't have control over changing what has already happened. So those two, depression is ruminating in the past. Anxiety is worrying about what hasn't happened, about the future. So being engaged, the present moment, right now, being engaged, it's the only thing we have control over. That's it. So what do we do in the present moment? I know we always say, just change your thoughts, just stop thinking that way, just think a different way. But,
it's not
that's
really
not easy.
Yeah. And so I was going to say, is that not really how it works? What are we supposed to do instead?
Right. Exactly. Well, that is another time. Because there's a lot you can do instead. And we're going to do one activity, like we're going to talk about how to pull this together. But, when I started out in the mental health field, like I really was a big, like, and I am still very much in cognitive behavioral, like, our thoughts, our feelings, our thoughts, our emotions, feelings, and behaviors, they're all connected. I mean, they are all connected, but it's not always just changing your thought that easy. It's just not. Awareness, information, understanding it, all of that, absolutely important. And again, all of this is information. So, hopefully, next time you say, oh, I feel depressed, you're going to say, oh, what am I thinking about? What did I do? Like, what is it that I want to change that I can't? Or if you're feeling anxious, okay, do I have control over that? No, but what can I do now to get that outcome? So, hopefully just having this information kind of changes the way you think, right. And catches yourself. But really the present moment is what positive psychology is about engaging in the present moment.
So Regina, how do we do this? How do we stay present, focus on the positive?
I mean, there are many different, ways of doing it. And this is just sort of like a little snippet of how to, but, positive psychology focuses on the components of positive emotion. So trying to find a positive emotion when we're in the middle of a negative emotion, or when something's happening and really doesn't lend itself to a positive emotion, it's okay. You feel it. I don't want this to sound like, oh, we're going to find the positive in everything that happens. It's, being authentic in your emotions, but when you're finding yourself tending towards just leaning always towards the negative and things are bad and whatever, giving yourself that opportunity to find some positive emotions, and such as, joy, hope, contentment, optimism, and belief in oneself, belief in the future, belief in things can change, belief in you have strengths. And again, that's kind of what I do. I help clients pull that out, finding it. It's not always easy to do by yourself.
Can I just jump in with maybe an example? It just made me think about something, like one of those really, challenging moments. I lost my dog earlier this year. And of course, just so much sadness associated with that. However, while that was happening, my friends and support group were so amazing, right? And so I found myself feeling grateful and so happy that these people were in my life and just filled with so much love in a different way.
Yeah.
And so focusing on that to be like, okay, well, this terrible thing is happening. It's sad, it's awful, but wow, how lucky am I? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Absolutely. I mean, I feel that you can find these strengths and you can find these emotions, and that there is this positivity, then being able to say, what is it that I am grateful for? How do I feel gratitude? Another part of positive psychology, and again, there's a flow to positive psychology too, working with somebody who comes in with something they want to change or fix. We don't go right to this. We go, we start at the base and we build somebody up. And then we go to, pulling in all of the things, the gratitude, kindness, the altruism, all of that too. What can you give out? One of the things I say to the clients all the time is, some people give out all the time because they think that, but you got to fill yourself up. And then when you overflow, that's what you give out. And that's what feels good. But if you're giving everything out and you're not filling up yourself, even the kindness and the gratitude and the, and the altruism, it's still not helping that outlook. It's still not helping that perspective. It's still not helping with that flow. So with that, yes. So you found yourself in a situation that you couldn't find anything, positive, and your friends actually filled you up and you let them fill you up. And that's where the gratitude and, the positivity came from there. It's not positive that you lost your dog,
right?
But how you felt because you found that you really had all of this support. So that was a perfect example, because you're not saying that the incident was positive. You're saying what you could find from it. That now, wow, I really do have all this support. I maybe never thought about that. I had all these friends and this was going to be, I was going to have somebody do this for me,
Exactly.
That's exactly what it is. That's awesome.
Right. I'm glad I could make that connection in the moment,
and it kind of goes, and then like the other sort of spectrum is meaning. It's very important. And I talk about this a lot too, is for person's meaning, like having meaning in their life, whatever it is that they're doing that fills them up, whether it's, they love their job, or, they are, they have good family connections. They have, they give, they feel kindness, like just meaning in their life. Like what is somebody's meaning? And it, it doesn't have to be like this big, existential meaning. It just means like, what are you doing? What is your life? Like industry. I always say, like, you have to feel, when people are depressed and they feel like, oh, I can't do anything. I don't want to get out of bed. Yeah, that's a genuine feeling. But ask them, once you did get up and you did go, and whether it was even just like you went and you met a friend for coffee, or you went to the grocery store, like
took a shower.
Like that is industry. That is like what gets you going. And that is what meaning is. So having meaning, purpose, that type of thing. And then engaging. So this is where I kind of wanted to bring you in, engagement, being in the moment, focusing on, so basically what is happening, like focus on what is and not what is not happening. So, and here's an example. How often do you, like brush your teeth and your mind is about what you're going to do for the rest of your day? Always. Yeah. So or how about like if you're in the shower and sometimes I'm like, did I put shampoo in my hair? Like, you wonder because your brain is not engaged in the activity that you're doing.
1000%.
Or, you're cooking something, you're like, oh, did I put the salt in? Like, because you're not engaged and you're not focused.
Always thinking about the next thing. You're like, what do I need to do next, or 5 steps from now?
Right. So you're missing that flow. You're missing that engagement. You're missing, something that could bring you joy and contentment, when you're, your soup boils and it smells really good. And you know what I'm saying? Like you just engaging in the moment. So that's something that people, it's hard to do. It's hard because of our life right now. Again, go back to when we were evolving. I mean, there wasn't that much stuff for, our ancestors to do. Got their food, cooked their food, ate their food, and went to bed. You know what I'm saying? Like it was just survival.
No phones dinging and TV in the background.
Exactly. So, it's very hard to stay in the present moment. And so I wanted to do a mindfulness activity, because mindfulness, I'm not talking about meditation. I know oftentimes people hear the word mindfulness and they think, well, I don't have time for that. I can't sit there for, 15, 20 minutes and listen, to a guided meditation. And I can't empty my thoughts. I can't, be calm like that. And, I don't have time for that. That is not how I use mindfulness. So when I say mindfulness, I say, mindfulness is the opposite of mindlessness. So mindlessness is being on autopilot, I'm just doing to get done. I'm just doing this so I can go to the next thing. But guess what? You probably didn't enjoy the next thing either. And you probably aren't going to enjoy the next thing either, because you're just trying to get done. And the next thing you know, it's like, Groundhog Day, you do the same thing over and over and over again, but you don't own any of it. You don't feel any of it. So when I talk to my clients about mindfulness, I always say that, I say, well, it's the opposite of mindlessness. Like, and of course we all have mindless activities. I mean, brushing teeth is a mindless activity, putting, lotion on your hands, it's a mindless activity. It doesn't have to be. So if you practice these little mindful activities during mindless times, you're rewiring, another word that, we've talked about before, you're sort of rewiring your engagement in life, in what you're doing.
Teach me those ways.
Right. Listen, and I mean, nobody does it 24/7. I mean, and sometimes, I try really hard. Like I do, like I try to practice what I preach. I honestly, I do. And it's so funny because very often, especially driving in the car, like how often do you drive in the car and the same route over and over again. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow, I don't even remember kind of
How did I get here?
because
Yes.
you did it very mindlessly,
That's so important too. What I heard you say is that we don't have to be doing it all the time, but knowing how to cue in so that you can know how to stay present and try and practice that as much as you can is a really great goal, I would say.
Yeah. And that's what really kind of fills up, like the brain and just makes the connections and, the memory, all of that. Like when connections are made, you're not making connection doing something if you're thinking about something else.
Right.
And when you make a connection, that sticks in your brain, so we are going to make a connection right now with some peanuts.
I'm ready.
Okay.
I have my peanuts ready to go.
Okay. So this is an activity. It's a mindfulness activity. It can take, I don't know, it can take a minute. It can take 5 minutes. It can take 10 minutes. It can, however long you really have. Oftentimes, and I said this to Courtney earlier, oftentimes, someone's like, oh, I don't have that about it. I can't do that. But then they start doing the activity. And the next thing you know, they get so engaged and they're like, wow, I did have 10 minutes. I did actually have 10 minutes to do it,
Right.
So we'll see this, how long this one takes. But anyway, so this is going to be a mindful eating activity. Because again, eating is another very, autopilot, mindless activity for most of us. We're eating our dinner, but rushing through it because we've got to, go, I don't know, change the laundry or whatever it is we're thinking about, or the show we want to watch, or, we're not engaged in the food. Or, and we also overeat when we do that, but that's another story too.
Another one, guilty. I can't wait.
Yeah. Always.
Yes.
So this is a mindful activity on eating a peanut. So Courtney is going to take we're going to start with a handful of peanuts, but maybe once we go into the mouth, it'll just be.
All right. I got a nice handful here.
Okay. So this is the activity. Begin with putting the peanuts in your hand. And now looking at them, just taking time and looking at the peanuts, comparing them, are they the same? Are they different? How do they feel? Are they heavy?
Yeah. I mean, I've never looked at peanuts so closely, but they all are very different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now take one peanut and place it in between your fingers. Just kind of roll it around. Again, how does it feel?
I mean, it is round. It's hard. I actually never realized there's this little pointy part at the top of this peanut here.
Yeah.
So fits perfectly there. Smooth, I would say. And yeah, there is this little coating on it. You're right. A little dry peanut action.
Yeah.
There it is.
So now bring the peanut up to your nose. And so what does it smell like? Just taking a peanut too, like, is there an aroma to it?
There's definitely an aroma. It smells very peanutty and I enjoy it a lot. It is strong, like a strong smell. I would say just this one peanut is producing quite some peanutty smell.
Yeah. Okay. So now put the peanut in your mouth. Just put it in your mouth. Don't chew it.
Don't chew it. Okay. Just in my mouth.
In your mouth. Okay, so what's happening? Well, now you can't talk, so I'll talk. You can nod.
I'll try.
So now notice what's happening in your mouth. Like what does your tongue feel like?
My tongue is very interested in this peanut. My mouth is salivating a lot.
Yeah.
Really wanting to eat the peanut.
Okay.
Oh, the peanut broke apart a little. No, I have multiple little peanuts.
Okay, so now how's that feel on your tongue now that you have multiple little peanuts?
More interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so take a couple chews.
Yum. That's what I was waiting for right there.
Right. So the anticipation, now you're feeling joy.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Right. You're engaged in it. Now here comes the joy, and then you can swallow because I'm sure it's disintegrating.
Yum, yum, yum. That was the best peanut I've ever had, Regina. I mean, like really, these peanuts I like throw on salads, but now I feel like I want to just maybe eat a few more peanuts because that was quite delicious.
Right. So what emotions did you feel?
It's definitely, I was interested not only in the peanut, but also the activity. So I feel like interested is sticking out in my mind.
Okay. Yeah.
Definitely joy. I love food. I do love like peanut butter too. So
Mhm.
all the smells and everything was
Yeah.
really getting me going there. And now I feel like content because I like finally got to eat it and chew it and I enjoyed that. So now I'm like, yes.
Right. So you had like a little anticipation, like you had a little bit of, yes. And then you had like the follow through and the,
like I could do that whole thing again,
right,
you know, and like
right,
really enjoy it just
right,
that same way. And I would feel like it was a little fun activity, you know?
right. But it wasn't, so typically when you eat peanuts and you love peanuts, like you probably mindlessly pop them into your mouth. You probably more than you should.
Oh yeah, I mean, this can absolutely.
But you know,
this is like
I mean,
yesterday.
right. And I mean, again, let's go back to the reality is, you know, we aren't going to savor our food. Savoring is another positive psychology word that I love. And what savoring does is that really helps to wire positivity in the brain. Because when you savor something, just means that you're spending time really enjoying it, like that feeling, that emotion that's attached to whatever it is you're doing is getting embedded.
Mm-hmm.
So you're savoring that experience, but then it's becoming a memory. So, you know, I use it, and I know people use savoring with food a lot. So, you know, doing this and savoring it, but also, you know, I always picture, you know, watching sunsets. I mean, I know it sounds very common, but we watch, everybody's like, oh, it's a beautiful sunset. Oh my gosh, look how pretty it is. But really savoring it, meaning like, think about like, wow, I'm looking at this beauty and this is how I feel. Like I'm feeling like this like excitement or this, you know, or this awe or this anticipation of what's coming next as the sun goes down and what colors are going to come next, you know. So you're owning that you're savoring it. Like you're really making it an experience. You're not just being like, oh, it's a beautiful sunset, let's go watch it.
Right. Let's take a picture. Let's take a picture and move on, you know, which I also feel like.
Right. Exactly. And you know why you do that? Because you want to post it on social media so everybody can say, oh, they saw a beautiful sunset, but you didn't
even enjoy. Right.
You just want to put it on social media so that, yeah. So, but anyway, so that is a very simple mindful activity that can bring you into the, the state of engagement, that can bring you into the state of the here and now and the present. So when you're doing reflection, you know, try when you find yourself reflecting on what made you stressed and overwhelmed and irritated and frustrated, stop yourself. Just say, okay, enough of that. What made me happy, content, joy, smile, you know, that type of thing.
I love it so much. Thank you so much for sharing all of this with us today. I mean, what a gift really to be able to know how to tune in and be present and try to find some of the positive things, not chasing after happiness all day, but just hanging out in the moments and trying to savor what's good about them.
Right. Not chasing it, finding it in the moment.